YouTube channel. We are now streaming here. And just bear with me one moment. YouTube channel. Okay. We'll call order at 5:36 p.m. this special meeting of the Eastern Reading Region 9 Joint Boards of Education Policy Committee. Members in attendance, Chris Parkin, Maureen Williams, and John Stinson. First, second item on the agenda, public comment. No members of the public being present. We'll move on to committee member comment. Hearing none, we'll go to discussion and possible action. Tri-board governance policy discussion, presentation materials, review, and feedback. So the point of this meeting is to try to just sort of review some of the ways in which we want to present the work that we've been doing on the policy committee, specific to the governance and the sort of the places where we have shared responsibility amongst our boards, outside of the regular policy work that we've been doing to try to align the policies of the three separate boards. Here we're talking about how we work together and ideally coming to some agreements on some of these points that can be really tricky. So I know we have been working, I'm going to share my screen. We've been working for some time in this document where we've talked about defining protocols, and we've talked about sort of multi-board meeting governance and setting up, and actually having a really sort of deep discussion about various options for dispute resolution and things like that. And I think this is all very useful content. And I don't think this goes anywhere. But I believe that we need a friendly presentation to this to help us ground ourselves in a sort of core set of conversations. And to really sort of focus the attention of our sort of expanded audience. Obviously all board members are invited and sort of welcome to join any of our policy committee meetings, but we're specifically trying to drive as much attendance as possible at our meeting scheduled for the 22nd, so that we can get feedback, ahead of our tri-board meeting in May. I think May 25th. So, so the way that I laid this out is I tried to just sort of articulate first, really simple, sort of almost mission statement. I borrowed heavily from the language that Chris had put together and the language that we had worked on over the course of the last several policy committee meetings. So I'm going to read this first slide, not because I intend to read through each one of the slides, but just because here I think it actually, this becomes the launch point in the structure of how the rest of the presentation is structured. So first, so Eastern Reading Region 9 Boards of Education are three independent boards sharing a central office staff and budget, meeting triannually to discuss shared responsibilities, and collaborating regularly via a core set of joint committees. Benefits of collaboration include increased municipal return on investment, horizontal and vertical alignment of the curriculum, and shared best practices, skills, and talents across a broad group of board members. So I am obviously, open to any thoughts and feedback on this, but before we dive in to that, I'll just take 15 seconds to illustrate. So that what I mean by this informs the structure of the rest. So yes, it's important to focus on the benefits of collaboration, and we'll try to sort of reiterate these throughout whenever there's a question, and try to tie it back to these benefits of collaboration. But the structure that I'm thinking about is here. So sharing a central office staff and budget, that's the sort of first section. Second section, meetings, right? Meeting triannually to discuss shared responsibilities, and then joint committees. So that would go here, central office and defining hiring protocols, possibly the budget process. I thought that we haven't actually talked a lot about that, but it may be worthwhile having some sort of talking points here, and maybe that's not as controversial as some of the other stuff we talked about. Then the meetings. So when we meet, so first starting with central office, then going to the meetings, then to the joint committees. When we're talking about the meetings, it's the meeting governance, i.e. who chairs and that kind of thing, followed by meeting sort of dispute resolution and articulating the various thoughts we've had on dispute resolution, and then finally wrapping up with joint committees. I did have one other thought on sort of the central office piece that could be quite controversial. So I don't know if we tackle it here. And even just looking at these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics, it's probably too much. And, for our meeting, we may want to prioritize, like, what do we really want to focus on? Maybe if budget process isn't that controversial, we leave that for another conversation later. Maybe joint committees is also later, but, this is the idea. The other sort of controversial topic that I'm thinking of with central office is termination. Right? Like, what is that process? Because we better make sure that we have some kind of agreement on what it should be, not in the midst of some controversy. So any thoughts? And I can come back here to the principles slide.
My thoughts are sort of things that I wanted to convey in general. I think from our persuasion standpoint, we really have to start with the why do we need to do this? In a more concrete way. This is sort of the higher level, the theoretical. But in overcoming what I do think might be some level of resistance to change, you're going to have to focus on, I think, sort of efficiency. How do we? And I think this is great from an academic treatment of the whole thing, but we're trying to not give people reasons to get too up in the philosophical standpoints, because then diverse. And if you focus on the efficiencies as a form of good governance, I think it'll be more persuasive. That's just how I see this. I mean, I should go through the rest of these slides, which, quite frankly, John, I didn't even know they were in my email box.
No, I just shared these. I like, this was, I just showed, we had been, I mean, none of this is new content. This is all the content that was on the sort of doc that we've been working off of. I just thought, we really need to just package it together to sort of steer the conversation.
I do think you need a fundamental buy-in at the top level of this is worthwhile work.
Yeah.
And in doing that, you have to avoid anything that can give rise to a controversy or a rabbit hole, basically, of, oh, well, you say we meet triannually, but really we meet at the call of the chairs and we do this and we do that. So it's not really true that we meet triannually. It is the kind of sideshow that we're accustomed to running into. And so we want to make the purpose as bulletproof as possible, because I think we all agree that there is worth in having a central and agreed to method of working. But that's a threshold issue.
Right.
For some people.
We have to get everyone else to buy into that threshold issue. I'm not sure they're there. That if we focus philosophically, we might not. So, and in terms of persuasion, why are we doing this? Why are we advancing? We're advancing this because everyone's time, effort is worth something, and we're advancing this because we want a predictable pattern of how we do things, and we haven't had that, so we felt at times we're spending too much time. And everyone has rules of the road, right? We need rules of the road, and what we're trying to do is come up with the road. So I guess my view on this is it's got to be a very concrete. Why are we here? We're here because we as a policy committee came to the conclusion that we need rules of the road and find procedures in the following area. A, B, and C. And we're I go on and on and on, and I hate going on and on myself. I just think
it's sort of, to me, if the three boards are going to meet together, the three boards, and spend 3 hours together, they should spend 3 hours together on the business of the three districts. They shouldn't spend 2 hours together arguing about how to do 1 hour's worth of work for the business of the districts.
Right. That's why
And I think that a lot of people could be persuaded by the idea that doing this will resolve in semi-perpetuity a number of questions that keep rearing their ugly head and resulting in meetings that go on forever.
And look, I think that there are people who see this as a power structure, and I think we have to reframe that to be away from power structures and power sharing and into efficiencies and rules that govern the road. Because I think if you get into who gets to say what too much, it becomes an argument over who got the last word, and I don't want to go there.
It's almost as if the three districts are renewing their wedding vows by saying, we're doing this because, you know, like we still believe in the common principle of efficiency and cooperation. Or we don't. And if we, and the answer we don't is an answer.
Right.
But, you know, we need to know that.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. I think we could either put it at the very beginning or we could put it after the sort of introductory statement, something along the lines of, here's why we're here. In an effort to create a predictable pattern of blah, 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 or whatever we want
in order to form a more perfect union.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to form our own government, and this is I think the benefits part of this, John, somewhere down further in the argument, it's the kind of part that pulls you back in, but it's not.
Yep. I got you. And Maureen, you're cutting out every, like at the end of the work of what you're saying.
I'm sorry. Is that better? Maybe I'll turn off my video here. So
maybe.
Okay. I turned off my video here, so hopefully you'll be able to hear me.
That does seem more consistent. The audio does.
I think it was the microphone, but moving closer. Either way.
Yeah.
All right.
Because the video was super clear. It just seemed like the microphone was cutting out for some reason at the last minute.
Yeah. Maybe I can move somewhere else in my house. Whatever. If I'm okay now, you'll let me know. If
you're great.
Okay.
Yep, you're great. Okay, so there's almost a sort of, why are we having this conversation, and why do we need to have it now?
Yeah. Why have it and why now?
Yeah. It seems like we should still say, you know, we're three boards, three independent boards who share central office, staff, and budget. We meet regularly to discuss shared responsibilities, and we collaborate via a core set of joint committees in an effort to maximize the impact of our time and effort.
Yes.
Or something like that. Maybe in order to maximize the impact of our time and effort.
And I think there's something to be said for the opportunity cost with respect to administrators too, in as much as you're holding them for 3 hours when they could be doing literally anything else. Right.
And minimize the, what's that called? Opportunity cost?
Yeah. I think what I struggle with is, on the one hand, the easiest way to frame why we're doing this is look at how much time we waste doing everything and how awful it is.
Right.
But that's going to put people back on their heels immediately. Yeah. And this can't be about the past. It has to be about doing things better. And the opportunity.
I think there's a way to say that without putting people back on their heels. I think we can say, look, each time we're here, we spend a lot of time discussing how we're going to proceed. We want to avoid those discussions going forward by having rules of the road that are applicable each and every time. I don't know that I guess I don't see that as putting people back on their heels. You don't want to criticize how it's been done in the past, but you can still acknowledge that it hasn't been done in a way that suits everyone's interest. No one's interest has been served by this.
Right.
I think we can at least get people to buy into the idea that, look, the way things have been proceeding doesn't serve anybody. That's why we want to come up with this.
Right.
I
Can you
think you can
honestly
get that
ask?
by.
Can you honestly ask yourself the question: does the way we work together work well?
Yes.
And can you say yes to that?
Right.
That's the first buy-in, right? So if you were trying to tier buy-ins, that's the first question. Can you say that this is working well? And you got to get, and it's not working well because we're even here, right? That we're here is evidence alone that it's not working well, right? I don't know how to frame this.
You can't spend your whole life lamenting the lack of process and never commit to creating a process. So
Right. So we're here to do that. We're here to create the process.
In order to improve the efficiency of our collaboration and maximize the impact of our efforts, the Joint Policy Committee
Advocates the following, : and then we list the things we want to do.
That's great.
with a phrase like advocates the following, there's no way there's two lawyers in this committee.
Well, we can take off our lawyer hats, or we can pretend to only be lawyers in another lifetime.
Yeah.
Believe me, some days I would like to be anything but a lawyer. But and this is where I think specificity matters, right? As specific as we can say what we're advocating at the front end,
Mhm.
and then, back it up with the thousands of reasons why, will be better. Central office, standardized central office hiring practices and protocols.
I would just say personnel protocols, because you want to talk about hiring, firing, discipline, and all of that.
Sure.
Are we going to say budget?
What about it? Standardized procedures for
Sort of shared, it comes back to shared understanding of so many of these things.
I think we're saying standardization.
But you really don't want a shared understanding. We don't want we don't want understandings anymore, I think, Chris. I think we want standardized practices and procedures, because these mechanisms and stuff, that was somebody's shared understanding, but they reinvented exactly how it worked every time.
Yep.
As long as the shared understanding is mine, it's the right understanding.
Right.
In order to improve the efficiency of our collaboration and maximize the impact of our efforts, the Joint Policy Committee advocates the standardization of processes and procedures for the following.
Matters impacting central office personnel. And then you can even put in parentheses, hiring, firing, managing, or whatever, so that it's clear, etc. And part of that is to what is delegated to the administration and to what is not delegated to the administration. Sort of a nested issue, which I don't think needs to be here. But.
Right. Hate that wrapping. Okay. Good.
Review and approval of central office budget.
Are we capitalizing central office?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And I think you could
You
also
had
say
the blue book that it would be capitalized.
We'll get John a copy of the blue book at the end of this. Review and approval of contracts impacting all three districts or something to that effect. I'm thinking of bus contracts, food service contracts, and bid procedures that impact all three districts.
And I think you add dispute resolution mechanisms.
So there I would put meeting governance and dispute resolution.
Resolution of disputes between boards, yeah.
I would separate out meeting governance because
Agreed.
I think that's an easy one for you to get people to buy into. This is how we conduct a meeting.
Yep.
But dispute resolutions is a tougher one.
Agreed.
So
I
you
think those
got to
are
leave
famous-
them some room to do the easy ones.
It's famous last words that any of this is going to be easy.
Right.
No, I don't think so. But, you know, in negotiations, you can either start with the easy stuff and get people to buy in, or you start with the hard stuff. And I think here we got to start with some of the easy stuff because we don't have buy-in at any level. We don't have everyone agreeing that we want to get to an agreement. We don't have step one.
Right.
So we got to do the easy stuff first.
Right. Everybody is comfortable with the common law marriage, but
Yes,
Right.
everyone's comfortable with the common law marriage.
Right. But if you like it, then you should have put a ring on it.
Well, not
I'm
so
picturing
sure
a
that everyone
wedding
agrees.
cake with 3 people on top.
I have to tell you about one case I handled, but I can't do it because this is a public meeting. So offline, I will tell you what was the most notorious case of my career. And it involved a wedding cake with 3 people.
Okay. Let's see. Can I get there? No. All right. I am going to shorten that. Anything else that we would add to this? I mean, policy, joint committees.
Joint committees, sure.
Yeah.
Because I think that's an easy buy-in. Everyone believes that joint committees are probably more efficient. I don't think you're going to get people saying, no, we don't want joint committees. They're going to argue about what the charge of the various committees is. But
Right.
But that's fine. I think having a standard process for a standard process procedure for joint committees would include the creation and charging of it, the staffing of it, the dissolution of it, what's standing, what's ad hoc, all of that stuff. And I think that's fair.
Joint Policy Committee advocates the standardization of processes and procedures for the following: matters impacting central office personnel, hiring, salary negotiations, etc., review and approval of central office budget, review and approval of shared contracts and bid procedures, meeting governance, resolution of disputes between boards.
Committees. And I would reprioritize these, to
Yep.
Maureen's point, to try to make
Yep.
those that are most palatable at the top.
yes, definitely.
Because people are going to see that first bullet and just see red and not read the rest of it.
Right. Well, and on this one in particular, I think we actually made a significant amount of progress coming up with that sort of an emergency, sort of break glass and emergency set of
Default framework.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think people just have to remember, hey, we did that, and I think it's working, right? I think actually even Region 9 is kind of using that as a part of how they're hiring their building leader, right?
Right.
And nobody got hurt.
Yeah, which is I love the idea that this wasn't even an instance where we needed to work together. It's just like, this is a good framework. We'll use this framework and adjust as needed. Okay. So let's see.
So now we've said what we're doing. The next slide's got to be why we're doing it.
Yep. I wonder if we could say joint meetings and joint committee governance. That could work. That gives us a little bit more room. joins two things into one relatively, controversial item.
So this summarizes what we think is important and should be done. The next slide is the why, and then after that is basically the questions inquiring to help frame our view on these 5 bullets.
Right. So then we say, this is it, this is the why, and then the following slide is, and we think the following should be the policies.
Right. Okay. Okay, good. This is good too, because this, it kind of bugged me that the flow of the presentation was kind of coded inside of a paragraph. I'm like, nah, dude, come on. So this could actually, slide 1, slide 2, slide 3, slide 4, slide 5.
I think you need a slide 2 that is the why.
Yeah. So the why is, are we basically talking about the benefits of collaboration?
I think the why is a little bit of, can we all agree that 6-hour meetings to accomplish 2 hours worth of work is a waste of time?
Efficiency,
all
efficiency,
agree?
efficiency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me do work for you to allow you to have less time that you have to spend in these meetings.
I do feel like we're saying that why right here though. And
Yeah.
the extent to which, like, I don't plan to read the slide, right?
Mhm.
Like that's not my style. So, it's on the slide, but saying to that effect, like I think I would hammer on this, on the efficiency and the collaboration to maximize the impact of our efforts.
Right.
I think you're going to get asked then, well, why now?
Mhm.
And I think why now is where I get a little bit, I don't want to make why now because the last year was hellacious. I want to make the why now because, why not now? We have new senior leadership who we owe the benefit of ground rules to,
Right.
who have not come from within the district, who are not used to the way that we operate. And we owe it to all of ourselves to have an understanding of what's going on. Come November, we have the opportunity for 30 to 50% turnover on these boards, and having operating rules running will help all of them onboard better and have better results for the districts as a result.
Yeah.
I also think you don't have to say the last year was hellacious. I think you can say we had to make a lot of these decisions on the fly in the middle of various crisis management modes. We don't want to do that. You don't want to make decisions on the fly in the middle of a crisis.
Right.
Or one after the other after the other. No one wants to manage that way or govern that way.
The crisis exposed weaknesses that already existed, basically.
Yes. Yes. That's a good way to put it.
I'm just putting some thoughts here, right? So benefits of acting now, like we're not in the middle of, obviously COVID is still happening, and I'm gonna say relative to the mini crises we're accustomed to.
Well, I think this depends whether or not the discussion on tri-board governance comes before or after the discussion upon DEI surveys at the May 25th meeting, whether in the midst of a current crisis.
Yeah. So let's say we're not in the middle. We're not in the middle of any of these.
There's no live controversy.
Right. No live controversy. That's good. I like that. Thank you. And one on the way. I'm going to say it poorly and then just keep moving. What else?
I think we owe it to future boards too.
That's a good one. The turn couched in terms of there will be turnover, and
Right.
each time there is, you have someone who says, well, how did we do this last time? Eventually, you're not going to have that institutional memory.
That's right. That's
And
actually a really good way to put it. We owe it to future board members to document the institutional memory.
Right.
And to give them a fair playing field when they are seated, because otherwise it is well, I don't know how to act until I've seen this before. And
That's
by
right.
that point, maybe I'm on the side of an issue I wouldn't have been on otherwise had I known
right.
about this little institutional rule.
That's right. Possibly opportunity to have this set up and benefiting us next year, right? So this can be sort of having the wind at our back.
Right. Provides the foundation upon which to build in a post-pandemic reality that is going to come with educational changes that will continue.
Too many words.
Clearly.
Right. It's gonna make us better next year when we're gonna have plenty to deal with in recovering from COVID, coming back from COVID. Streamlines.
There you go. Streamlines. That's the good word.
Okay.
That's good.
This is good. Anything? I mean, these four things are solid. Anything else we would add? And obviously, we'll wordsmith and make it better. I don't even have any icons in here, which is weird. No pretty pictures. This whose presentation is this?
You need sometimes to streamline it down from the pretty pictures, John.
Well,
They
but
kind of,
but this too, right? This a paragraph? No, what? No, there can be no paragraphs. One word. That's it per slide.
It's like a flip book.
It's all right. It's and also I didn't spend time on the first slide, but this is between three boards, which I'm open to changes. Okay, so good. That's very helpful. So can we look at the ordering here? So joint meeting and joint committee governance. Review and approval of central office budget. So far,
I think the fourth one about shared contracts and bid procedures might even go as number 2 as the second least controversial, because I don't recall a time when that has caused us any grief.
Okay. Review and approval of central office budget matters impacting central office personnel, and resolution of disputes between boards. I think people are going to assume that this is some kind of drag down fight. It's not. It's if we can't come to an agreement, then we just agree that there's no mechanism, there's no model.
I mean, I think the issue that I see in this is that bullet point is sort of nested within all of the other ones anyway.
Yeah.
Because you don't reach a consensus on how to approve a central office budget without also knowing how you just resolve disputes between boards on these issues.
Yeah. Yep.
but you do have to make it clear, because what it seems to me to be the version, the version of a turf war sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get people to focus on just what you said, that you solve these problems anyway. Now all we're doing is formalizing how we do it. I think you're going to get to, they're going to have to push back against why that's not true. That's where they'll go down in the weeds, but you'll have to pull them back to, no, we solved it this way before. No, we solved it this way before. You know,
Right. I think you can really appeal to sort of the process junkie by saying, really all we're doing is trying to codify the way to do it.
Right.
We're not
Right.
married to a way to do it. And we're not
Correct.
telling you what the way to do it is.
Exactly.
We just want you to agree that there should be a way.
That's exactly what that's my point of view on these. Like, would I prefer option A versus option B in some of these? Yeah, I may think that I think this makes more sense. That doesn't mean that's what we're going to do. If we agree that there's a sort of, there's another path that we want to take, then that's what we do. And yeah,
if we draw straws to set a central office budget, and that's what we all agree to, that's how we set a central office budget.
right. Yeah. Again,
I don't know. I like that idea, but
I'm not saying I like that idea, but if that's the process, then that's the process, and let's just write it down. Cool. Okay. So I feel good about that. Then we go into the benefits of acting now, which I think is super important.
But back to the first slide again, John. What I'm trying to think about is a way to soften the idea of resolution of disputes, because it does sound like, two fighters enter and one
I agree.
comes out.
But
I don't. We've just sort of started using that language colloquially, and I think that there might be a better way.
I think you're right.
methods of acting in concert.
Or
That's
process when there's not consensus.
I like that. Yeah.
Put it in the positive.
Yeah.
Okay, so hold on. I remember methods for acting in concert.
Yep.
And what did you say, Chris?
I said something in the negative, so I'm not going to say it again.
Oh, okay.
You could say
or-
methods for acting in the concert and reaching consensus.
That sounds good too. Or methods for reaching consensus.
There we go.
I like that. That's really good. That's methods for reaching consensus. It's like we just need to have some methods
Right.
where when we don't have consensus, this is how we get consensus. That's brilliant. Dig it.
It's how we resolve disputes. So,
Oh, that's good. We could call it dispute resolution. Oh, hold on. Let me put and around and around.
We're just trying, I'm just really, really vested in the idea that your initial out of the gate on this is as positive and as likely to bring in the people on the fringes as it possibly can be. Because I know how much pushback I think you're going to get.
Yeah.
and it's my hope, but I'm not convinced that folks who are detractors on this work will come on the 22nd and not just on the 25th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would hope that during that conversation on the 22nd, if people say, no, this is the way that it's done, great, write it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, again, we are not here to say, well, we don't care that that's the way it was done. Here's the way it should be done. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to say, let's write it down. So
if you give us feedback on any of these things, we will address it on Friday morning over the course of the next month and incorporate it into the output.
Correct.
Yep.
Like that. And you know what? That's actually another benefit of acting now. We have time to actually take feedback and incorporate that ahead of the May meeting.
It is a
Yep.
thoughtful process designed to make sure everybody is heard.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, that's it. So that's really, really, really helpful. All this feedback. I think slide.
So would the slides then be sort of the inquiry questions that we talked about last week? Kind of like, all right, on joint meeting and governance, here's the questions we want feedback on from that document
Sure.
to frame the conversation. Because I don't think you need slides on each of these that are dictating, here's what this means or what it is we want. It's here are the questions around this topic that we're really keen to learn about.
Or you advocate a position and you look for people to pull it apart. I mean, I don't know. The inquiry questions always give me pause because it gives people more fodder for the discussion to take longer. Whereas if you say, this is how we think joint meeting and joint committee governance should be addressed, and you put in a bullet that says, this is our proposal, then you are anchoring people with one idea, right? Basic negotiation where you want to anchor them and let them push back against it. If you do the inquiry questions, you may want to do that philosophically, but that doesn't get you to as fast a resolution, I don't think.
So basically, here's the null hypothesis. Tell me why it's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and I think we have a recommendation because it is what we do, and it's pretty widely understood. Joint meeting and joint committee governance, review and approval of shared contracts, review and approval of central office budget. And then on this one, we actually recently came to some kind of agreement, some thinking on this. And so now, and so for each one of those, it's like, here's what we think the right answer is. Here is the example. On the methods for reaching consensus, we've talked about 4 possible answers. So on that one, we're not even saying, here's what we think the right answer is. We're saying,
here are some methods.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I just think you want to anchor the discussion, guys. I don't think you want to just ask questions.
And actually, not for nothing, because in the first 4, we sort of have a semi-accepted view. It allows you to build wins and builds credibility in the process. By the time you get to the dicier things.
Right. So I think each one of these slides would be about articulating. So the first 4 are, here's what we think the process is. Tell us if we got it wrong, and suggest fixes. For the 5th one, it's here are some options. This is obviously important, and here are some options that we've discussed. If you have a 6th, 7th, 8th option, great, let's hear it. And barring additional options, let's debate these 4.
Right. And to which of the bullets they would apply.
Right. That's right. Okay. That's great. So I can sort of, like, that's mostly now just sort of going and getting the content and sort of aligning it to those. And this is a much better way of presenting this than I was planning on. So thank you. We have, I don't think we have quorum on Friday. Isn't that right? I think Maureen and Gwen you're both out.
I have a bit of a problem, but my problem could resolve, John. So
okay.
I could tell you, you could have quorum, but I could also tell you the night before you don't.
Yeah, that's fine. So, I mean, I was going to have Sharon cancel it, but I think we'll just leave it on, and I'll show up and tell people that there's no meeting if, if there's no meeting. And if we do have a meeting, then I think this falls pretty squarely into, what we have been talking about in those agendas, and we can wrap this up.
If I'm going to attend, I will tell you it will probably be by phone. You won't, okay. I'll call in.
That's good. Well, I mean, this seemed to work by phone, so.
Yeah,
good. Okay. Does anybody have anything else that we want to make sure we touch on before we wrap?
No, I think this is helpful. The only other thing is messaging out to the 21 board members, and if that's all coming from John to all 21 folks and such. So I want to make sure that they are paying heed to the 22nd.
Yeah.
So I invited everyone, in that series of thank you very much, Google Calendar, for suggesting this, and it's just like, nope, that's not it. Please stop sending. So the 4 invites that I think people got. So I did send it to everyone. I think maybe I'll just send a note to the chairs.
I would send it to everyone again, John, because really? Okay. I do think that you need to get across that we all think that this is important, and we do not want people coming to the party after the fact and saying, but what about? You
Okay.
don't want that at the tri-board. You want your but what about to occur on the 22nd.
If we all collectively believe that the work should be done in committees, this is proof of that concept.
Right.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I'll send a note now, and just ask that everybody show up on the 22nd.
And I think chances are that because they got so many calendar invites, A, people don't necessarily see any substance in calendar invites or open it to see details.
Right.
And B, probably just thought, oh, what is this?
Right.
Right.
Moved on.
Yep. Okay. Good. Very good. Now look for a. Oh, sorry. No, can't do that. Public comment. No members of the public being present. Board member, committee member comment.
Appreciative of you being willing to do this at this time. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Move that we adjourn at 6:21 p.m.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:21 p.m. All right. Thanks. Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
folks.